the U.S. expansion in the South Pacific. Hi, I'm Mariana.
I'm Carla.
I'm Emily.
I'm Andrea.
So a little introduction before we start is, in the late 1800s, the U.S. expanded into the South Pacific to increase their trade and strengthen their navy and also gain global influence, which led to the takeover of Hawaii, Guam, the Philippines, and American Samoa.
So the Guano Islands was a label for islands that were rich in fertilizer, which was also known as bird food, which was very, very valuable for farmers in the 1800s, with places like the Pacific, the Caribbean, and the U.S. Because many of these islands were unclaimed pieces of land, this caused many arguments for many people in the U.S. Not only because the military wanted to use it, but nearby countries also wanted to take advantage of it for a military base. The Guano Act allowed the U.S. to be able to participate in worldwide trades for fertilization, and because there's so much arguments over this unclaimed land, the U.S. decided to put a law that prohibited people from being able to claim this land. So it was left as a place for exploration and national distributes.
So Hawaii was an independent kingdom until the late 1800s, and America wanted Hawaii for its position in the Pacific. The Queen of Hawaii at the time tried to give more power to the Hawaiian people, and American businessmen didn't like that, so with help from the U.S. Marines, they removed her from the power, and a couple years later, they took Hawaii and made it part of the U.S.
For the Spanish-American War, the U.S. with Spain secured major territorial gains in both the Caribbean and Pacific. They gained new territories like the Philippines, Puerto Rico, and Hawaii, I'm pretty sure, which secured their spot in the Caribbean and the South Pacific.
So Samoa is located in deep water in Palau Harbor. The U.S. wanted to take control over Samoa because of its harbor for their ships. Not only did the U.S. want Samoa, but Great Britain and Germany also wanted Samoa. Germany ended up getting the western side of Samoa, known as German Samoa, and the United States got the eastern Samoa, known as American Samoa. The United States wanted Samoa for their ships, for Navy ships to stop and refuel to rest, and they also wanted Samoa because it helped them travel farther and longer distances. Samoa strengthened the U.S. presence in the Pacific, and Samoa people had to lose control in many of the native languages.
So some pros for the South Pacific takeover was it made the U.S. a stronger world power, and it made it able to send its military across the Pacific. It also gave the U.S. places for ships to stop for fuel supplies, which helped with their trade with Asia. And it gave the U.S. new materials like sugar from Hawaii and new places to sell their American goods. Some cons were it took control of nations and cultures without their permission, ending their self-rule. And then American culture and language replaced many traditional customs and ways of life for those same nations that they took over. And then local economies were changed to benefit U.S. businesses, which often forced Native people to work for lower pay.
This picture shows the pros and cons of the U.S. expansion. In the picture, one of the pros is access to the trade in Asia, and one con is that it took away the independence of Pacific people.
So overall, some of the lasting impacts about the U.S. expansion to the Pacific was that it increased from 1850 to the 1900s. It expanded to gain power, control, and trade and land. The expansion brought many benefits to the U.S. Lots of islands were changed because of this, though. It did hurt a lot of Native people because they lost their language, culture, traditions, and many other stuff. The U.S. still has Navy and air bases in the Pacific that are important to the state. These are our sources. Thank you.